You're listening to Inclusive AF with Jackye Clayton and Katee Van Horn.
All right, folks, here we are again. Welcome to the Inclusive AF podcast. I'm Katee Van Horn.
And I'm Jackye Clayton. And this is Inclusive AF podcast.
I just said that.
I know.
We're very excited. We're recording on a Friday afternoon, so we're very excited about this. And we have our very first, very special guest, Salvador Bretts, who's taking photos first. So we got to get started with the photos. Sal, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys so much for inviting me.
So we would like to start off just by hearing a little bit about you, hearing what we'd like to call your identity story. So would love you to share whatever you're comfortable sharing about who you are.
Let's kick it off. So my name is Salvador Bretts. Everybody calls me Sal. And it all kind of boils down to what they used to call me at my old employer, J-Stick. I am of both Jewish and Mexican heritage, and I am also gay. So J-Stick, Jewish gay Aztec.
Okay, there you go.
I love it.
It was very affectionate. I loved it. I owned it. But yeah, so my background is I'm originally from San Diego and from Tijuana. That's California and Baja California. And I am a mix from my Mexican Catholic father and my German, Jewish, American mom. So I always grew up kind of being binational, biracial, bi-theological, by everything.
By all the things.
Yes. But then I settled firmly on homosexual, just like one side.
Firmly. Good idea. Good idea.
Yeah.
Good call. Good call.
And I've been in Arizona now for about 3.5 years. Grew up in San Diego, then went to school in DC, worked in finance in New York for 8 years, then finance in Mexico City and fintech for 3.5 years, and now proud to call Arizona home.
And we are proud to have you. So I was fortunate to meet Sal a few years ago and have continued the relationship. And so I invited him on today, Jackye, because I wanted to talk a little bit about the most exciting news for us in Arizona this year with the election, how we turned the state blue. So,
which I really didn't think y'all were going to go. I'm just going to be real honest. I just was like, oh, whatever, like just pass on Arizona, because it's been a rough go.
Yes.
Sal?
Yes, but okay. So I'm just gonna quick thing.
Go.
Here in 2017, like after the 2016 event, so we forgotten now. And I was like, oh, it's a red state. It's a red state. I worked my tail off in 2018. Took a month off from work. And since 2018, we had, out of Arizona has a delegation of 11 people. That's 2 senators and 9 congressmen, right? Since 2018, we had 5 congressmen out of 9 be Democrats and 1 senator out of 2 be Democrats since 2018. So we were already on the bluer side of purple.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now we have delivered. Sorry, with that, continue.
Yeah, no, this is exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I think this year has really been an interesting year in Arizona. And to your point, 2018 did really make Arizona purple, for sure. And now I think we're ready to, kind of switch all the way blue and stay blue as long as we possibly can. I think Sal might be having his...
Bye, Sal. Look, I can see. We can see your reflection in your picture. I was really thinking you were doing
his
something.
Elephant, beautiful dogs have joined us, so we might get a glimpse of the ladies here in a minute. But so I would love to hear a little bit about, just if you could share with us, what have you been doing in the last, probably 4 years, if not 2 years at least.
But wait, I want to back up because you know him. I don't know him.
Yeah.
I would like to know how you even got involved. I mean, it's not like people come out of the womb and say, you know what I want to do.
Well,
how, what? Well, maybe. However, how did you start? I want to know how you started focusing on these things, like focusing on politics and wanting to get involved from that perspective. Like, how did that happen?
Sure. So I actually can trace it back to middle school, having one awesome, horrendous, brutal, evil teacher that really enjoyed punishing students by every time that she would walk into a classroom and everybody was very noisy. She was an English teacher at this American school I went to in Mexico. And every time that she walked in, everybody kept just yapping and yapping away. She would stand at the front of the classroom quietly. And she was a very visible person. Like she took up quite a bit of space, so it's not like she was invisible, and just held her hand up and started putting up finger every second. And it wasn't until everybody was totally quiet that she's like, okay, you now owe me, everybody owes me a 6-page paper tomorrow on blank in English. And not everybody had English as a native language. So anyway, she found me early on, and I had 2 older cousins who were complete lovely people now, but at school were wrecks. So when she found out that there was a third one, me, she decided to pay extra close attention to the disaster that I was going to be. However, I turned out to be the biggest teacher's pet, and she would always have me write stuff that I cared about. And I remember writing a paper about Hillary, about Al Gore, about her Senate race, about the election. So for a while, it looked like I could not pick a winner to save my life. But being in politics was always part of the game. And then when I applied to colleges, all I ever wanted to go to was Georgetown, be in BC, be all around it. On the international side, I interned for Senator Dianne Feinstein in San Diego, who is still a senator. Like, it was a while ago, and she's still around. She's holding the fort down, intelligence. But anyway, so politics has just always been a big thing for me, because it was just a way that I saw even as a kid that we can all get involved. We all have a say, and things can change. It's, I don't know, it felt easier than moving the entire world.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. But you are changing. I mean, that's what's so funny. You have that power, right? That people get the power to change the world. So then flash forward, 2018.
So I do love that like, the thing is that we all have the power to change the world, especially us in the United States, that we are blessed to be in a democracy, and that we still have to fight for the rights for some people to go out and vote. But I just like to think that my role is one of, I like getting people excited about voting. I like connecting people to like, hey, your vote can make this difference. And that is everything. Like, you can do this for your parents' healthcare. You can do this for your kids' future. You can do this for your neighbors. And a lot of people just kind of have let go of like, oh, my vote doesn't matter. And it's like, no. So if anything, I'm like, your vote matters. I'm here to get you excited about it. I do the craziest things to get people excited about it, which I'm sure Katee has seen online a bit. Yeah, so when I moved here after the event, I moved to Arizona from Mexico City, but my deal was fine. I'll come back. I will continue working in financial services, but I'm coming to fight. Straight up, like, I'm coming to fight. There's an election coming around, and this will not stand. And little by little, this is one of the amazing things about Arizona that I can't say the same for anywhere else that I've lived. People are incredibly welcoming. They are so interested and interesting, and they just, any little effort you give here has greater impact, not just in terms of like what you immediately do, but what you move a little bit, and then other people around you see you do it, and they're like, oh, I want to get involved too. And it just becomes more and more. It's a beautiful place where neighbor will help neighbor who don't always agree on everything. But Arizona is just a special place.
Oh, I want to move to Arizona.
Yeah, Jackie's in Waco, Texas. So I know our listeners know that, but she's still got the Texas fun. So you can move there next.
I'm listening very closely on how to turn
taking notes.
Almost had Texas.
So would love to hear a little bit about how you got involved with the Biden-Harris campaign and what you've been working on.
Yeah, so I will admit that when the Democratic primaries were in full swing, my front yard saw a lot of different signs go up. none of which belonged to a white man above the age of 50. If you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Until the very end. It's like I started with Kamala, then Beto got up there, then he did horrible, then Julian Castro. And all the while, everybody was telling me about Mayor Pete, and I'm like, what? Like, he's my age and he's gay? Like, no, go away. And then I heard this amazing, brilliant man speak on a podcast on Pod Save America about the kind of SCOTUS reform and the need for DC statehood. And I'm like, this guy's very, very smart. Who is this guy? I didn't tie the voice to Mayor Pete. So anyway, so I became a big Mayor Pete fan, and got to, as you get involved with the candidate here, you end up finding other grassroots supporters that often have really great values. And that's not to put down any other candidate. Like, everybody had great camps. For me, for the 2020 cycle, it put me in touch with grassroots people that I wouldn't have met maybe otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And we had this bond of hope and positivity, and that our vibe was more about moving America forward, winning the era, turning the page on Trump's presidency, and public service and civic duty. And it was very inspiring. So from that, we kind of formed like a good group. And then as soon as Mayor Pete dropped out and immediately endorsed Joe Biden, we all immediately endorsed Joe Biden and went forward. And then I kind of became known as like one of the Pete guys, also affectionately called one of the Booty Boys, because the name's Buttigieg, Booty Boys.
Yep.
Yes.
But thank you. That's two nicknames, too. It's like, oh, any other nicknames you want to share as we move forward? So interesting.
Spanish, so then things just kept evolving, getting more and more involved in volunteering, and then came the Democratic Convention, and I ran to be one of the Biden delegates for my district. I actually lost the election, but almost like an Arizona Republican, I lost the election, but I got appointed to the position anyway. That's just another McSally joke.
Yeah, indeed.
Anyway, so I got to be a Biden delegate to represent Arizona at the convention, which was held in Wisconsin, but I was in my living room in this exact same spot where I am right now because it's 2020 and COVID. Yeah. So that's how it all kind of evolved.
I love Pete. I love Buttigieg. And I remember I thought the same thing you did when he came out. I was like, seriously? Like, you're like 5 years old. Thanks. Like, what do you know? And then I was like, there's no way. And I love him. I love the way he can take a beating with a smile, and you can't see it. He'll listen to it. And then he's like, oh yeah, really? Watch this. Like, same smile. And he will tear you to shreds smiling. You're like, what just happened to me? It's like a dirt devil. Like, you're just like, you're like, what? How did he bring me back here? I've seen him do it with some of the strongest people. I've loved watching him the week of the election and the week before on Fox. I was like, that's when, and then my husband and that's when my husband goes, I don't know, I love that Pete Buttigieg. When he saw him, the fact that he stood up, he's like, I'll take it. I'll take Fox. It's, it's like somebody's going to have to go to Fox to answer the, and he's like, you know what, I'll do it. And we fell in love with them. But I'm so glad that that's a major change. You went specifically with the idea of trying to help change the state, or was there something else that factored into you moving there? Because that's a little crazy.
No, that sounds totally crazy. So I actually was in a relationship with a Phoenician, and that's how I ended up coming to Arizona. Luckily, my tenure with Arizona has outlived that relationship, and I plan to keep it.
You are in politics, aren't you? I'm gonna write that down for the future. So what was it like on the week of the election and seeing everything go down? How were you? Because I know how I was. I know how Katee was. How are you doing?
Well, so 2016, I experienced that as an expat living in Mexico City who I did all my voting, donations, because that's kind of voter I had always been. But I remember that feeling, and I mean, we all have like some PTSD from it, but I also remember how great it felt in 2018, taking that time off and working my butt off, canvassing, registering voters, going back to those voters and be like, hey, did you vote? No, get in my car. I'm going to drive you over there. Like doing all this stuff. I got chased by drug dealers. I got bitten by dogs. I went places. But feeling that way after the 2018 elections is very different. Like when you leave it all out on the field, you almost don't, like when you're on election night, you're not that nervous. You're mostly just exhausted, like absolutely physically, mentally depleted, where you can't feel bad. You just feel empty.
Right.
So 2020, I decided to do the same thing. I had been getting as involved as possible on the weekends, all the free time, donations, the fundraising, as the most that we could do during COVID. But I decided this time I actually took a week and a couple of days off before the election from work, and as my vacation, because it's COVID, nobody had a vacation anyway. And it started out with phone banking, then volunteering at this event, and quickly the Biden-Harris campaign is really the biggest coalition I have ever seen, and I hope it's not the biggest I'll ever see, but we had a huge coalition of independents, of Republicans, but more importantly, that we really have to highlight for Arizona, never have we ever had so much engagement from Hispanic, Mexican, Chicano community, and from Native Americans and women of color across the board, most of which are Hispanic in the state of Arizona. But this is a victory about them and finally being prioritized and finally stepping up, and the institution of the Democratic Party finally saying, all right, yes, we will place our faith in you, and we got it done. So event to event, the phone banking, and then meeting somebody awesome at the Cher surprise concert, which was a very interesting experience, where basically I saw a friend there and said, oh, he's taking time off. You can use him for anything you want. I'm like, I feel like I am being offered out for services. This is great. And then it was staffing this event and just getting people excited about voting, giving them information, and then going deep into Chandler, where somebody called the cops on us, and that was a very interesting experience. Then over to Guadalupe, then into like deep East Mesa, Burton Bar Library, got to like host Jessica Alba.
Yes. So we had some really interesting visitors during the campaign. Jessica Alba was one of them, and she had the event at one of the libraries here in town, and obviously in support of. And Cher did a concert, and tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so Cher was awesome. Everyone's like, oh my God, Cher. And of course, like almost every single LGBT person we're assumed to like be Cher fanatics. I like her, but I mostly went so I could go and be like, hey mom, you're not the only one who's seen Cher live. So yeah, it was my first, I think, in-person event on the campaign. And it was just so different to see all the MAGA rallies on TV and super spreading and no masks, or just a total mess. And the precise organization that the Arizona Democratic Party and Mission for Arizona and Mark Kelly's campaign and all of these campaigns that coordinated, what they did first of all, they had it in West Laveen, Phoenix, which is not very central, kind of out there. Mm-hmm. They didn't announce the location until like an hour before, because they wanted to make sure that people didn't flood it and create a super spreader event. Mm-hmm. They had an organized line. Everybody that showed up had to immediately fill out a form for contact tracing, just in case. Masks, temperature taken. People there at all steps, like, please keep separate, keep distanced. The chairs kept separate. I mean, it was sad, because like, oh, how is this our new normal? But also it was a beautiful thing to see, like, that, I'm on the right side. Like, these people care about our health. They care about limiting and kicking COVID in the blank. It felt great. The divine Cher, showed up 2 hours late and lip synced 2 songs, only one of which was hers. And she looked like a pirate and mispronounced Kamala's name. But I digress. It was fabulous. It was amazing. And it got the vote out.
And scene. Thank you for visiting, Sharon. I want to talk about one of our other local heroes, and I know that you went to an event at her restaurant, or at least in the parking lot of her restaurant, Chef Silvana. So I know, after the vice presidential debate, both Pence and Kamala and Biden were here in Arizona, and Pence held a super spreader rally at a corporate location here in town. What did Kamala and Joe do?
They had, first of all, they didn't advertise their entire path. They had very small, unannounced, because again, they knew that if they announced everything here, we would gather and totally, what do we say now, become stands?
Yes, Stan, yeah.
Right. Luckily for us, our dear President-elect Joe Biden, at his event in Maryvale, let it slip that he was going to go have lunch at one of his favorite places. And we knew Chef Silvana because she had already done some national commercials. Her restaurant is about 3 blocks from my house. So a couple of the former booty boys and I, who are now Biden boys, I guess, people, were like, we're gonna go. Always with the masks on, and we like, even without any coordination or organization, a couple of us went, and it was actually a really beautiful thing, because it turns out that the restaurant was right in front of a neighbor's front yard, and Secret Service was there. I was like, do you even have permission to be on this front yard? And the neighbor came out and was like, heck yes. Everybody just, it was just a beautiful Phoenix moment. And I guess one thing that, oh my God, and seeing the bus, we got to see the bus drive by, and everybody was so excited, like the soul of the nation bus. It was beautiful. And our president-elect and vice president-elect went into the restaurant with Chef Silvana, and on their way out, they kept their distance, and we were just like cheering them on. It was after she had just made us so proud of that debate. And from across the street, you could see how touched they were that people showed up. They didn't mean it. It was not planned, nothing. We didn't know how close we were gonna get. I honestly took my book, like Kamala's book, just in case we got like extra close. I was prepared for everything. But you could see how they were truly touched that people would just show up, and we wanted to make a point to make sure that they feel that they are welcome. And we proved that, yes, Arizona is Biden country and Harris country.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to know something. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and FYI, if you're in Arizona, please visit Barrio Cafe. Chef Silvana, amazing chef, and has kept her restaurant open, or, has served the community, I should say, throughout COVID. So she was making donations to hospital and frontline responders, those types of things during COVID. And so she is back open now. And so go visit. It's awesome food, and she's amazing. Sorry, Jackye, go. That was my plug for the day.
I know, I'm sad again. I realized now I have to move to Arizona again. No, I just wanted to ask, so you said you were in financial services as you started getting into this piece. So how did you work that in? I know, we're inclusive AF. We have our personal opinions. There's a certain part where you're like, okay, this is my public persona. This is what this is. I don't want to mess up my business. I don't want to do this. So how was it? How were you able to be so, a lot of us don't want to come out of the closet with our politics because we don't want people to come to us and be like, oh, I didn't know you were a, fill-in supporter.com. And so how did you was that something you just didn't care about, or you were just like, this is the way it is? Or were you careful at first and then just couldn't do it anymore? Or neither one of those, and it's completely different?
If I could be allowed a little bit to go back down memory lane for a second about,
Yes.
I started working in financial services at JP Morgan, the private bank in New York, right out of college in 2008. It was the worst time to go into financial services.
Oh, yes.
In 2008.
I remember 2008.
Got there early, like the room's on fire, everything's going to hell. I'm like, This is normal. What's going on? Anyway, so this was 2008, and I knew that I had actually helped to get recruited JP Morgan through something called Out Conference, where the banks come and recruit into New York, fly LGBTQ students from all over the country to New York to interview and to help them with the resume. So I knew that I was going into a safe space, but going into the office, I still didn't know, especially I was on an all Latin America team. I didn't know. They taught me very, very early that no, we hired you. We want you to bring your whole self to work. JP Morgan was always very, very strong on this since as far back as I can remember. And they put LGBT leadership front and center. And like, it is our duty to be out, to make it accepting and inclusive. Because if you're not bringing your whole self to work, then you're not entirely at work. And we want you entirely here and present. And Wall Street, that also means you're here 24/7 and glued to your desk.
Right.
But
they meant it.
There's a picture
We
of
want
your
you to be
partner.
here always. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and so my professional life was like a school in DC, then in New York. So the whole question about my politics, it was, you're in a big bubble. Go to Mexico City, and it's a little bit different there because I am a Mexican, but they view me as either like a weird expat, or they just see like, oh, tall white Mexican. But the question about being out was also an issue, because Mexico City, for example, has some of the most progressive laws, some of which predate anything done in the States, but some of the most progressive laws anywhere in the country or in the continent. So it's amazing, but nobody in the world of finance, especially high finance, as some people like to say, was actually out. I went there in a position of privilege with a great company that I have great respect for. Now I'm with BlackRock, one of the leaders in inclusion. And I just really went with an attitude of, I don't really care what anybody thinks, because I'm good with my company, my team knows me, and it turned out to be a big positive there. Fast forward over to Arizona, where I, again, didn't even think about it, because I just thought, well, I'm coming back home to the States, what does it matter? And regarding my politics, it's just, if I live openly, and I am very open with my background and being a member of the LGBTQ community, that nobody would ever think like, I wonder what his politics are. You know, that it's like, we don't have to ask. It's sort of like the new don't ask, but I'll tell you if you want me to.
Yeah.
But at work now, especially in private banking, where you're dealing at the personal level with people's financial situations, I have adopted a policy of, I will never lie. I will never ever lie about something that I believe in, or what I am, or my background, or anything. There may be situations where, to avoid an embarrassment for somebody else or awkwardness for anybody, I may dance around things. Because when you grow up in our community, you know how to play around with pronouns in a way that you can just maneuver things without lying. Mm-hmm. I will not actively bring up things in politics. I can discuss things in current events with clients ask me about an economic update without showing a bias. Mm-hmm. But people know what I'm engaged with. And that's okay. Like and if people want to ask me about it and get involved, I'm happy to share with them. If they can ask me in a diplomatic way and they don't agree with me, I honestly don't take it personally. I don't take it personally. It can be hard sometimes to see somebody like be super Trumpy and not feel attacked as a minority. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I think that our side also has to work on, that not everybody is racist because of that. Some people have just been turned the wrong way through uninformed use of social media and through following the wrong people. It does make it a little bit hard, I'm not gonna lie, but I make sure to keep it separate from work. And a lot of people think that, oh, how long have you been working for this campaign? I'm like, well, no, I kind of pay them to let me volunteer.
Right. Because someone asked me that today. They were like, well, how do you bring your whole self to work if there's like some dramatic difference of opinion with like your executive team. Like they say, bring your whole self to work. And then it's like, oh, wait, but you just asked everybody to like participate in this event that you don't agree in, or donate money or encourage these things. And then you're like, wait, does that mean you're against me? Because sometimes it feels like, most recently, it's been that feeling in the air of we cannot. It was like, it's either this or this. It just felt that way. And it's interesting. I'm glad you brought up like there's very specific. Not everybody who is a Republican is like, like you're saying, is a hateful this or that. Not everybody who is Democratic is like a bleeding heart and wants to donate their money to everybody either. So it's just interesting. So thanks for answering the question. I know it might have seemed like a weird question, but somebody just asked me that today and I was like, oh, I don't know. I get nervous about it sometimes. That's why it's like when people, follow you on social and you're like, oh, what did I say? Was it because Wednesday was bad? I don't know what I said.
Yes. I definitely, I'm open about everything. And, but if like a client starts to request to follow me on social media, I'm like, let's hold off on this maybe.
Yeah.
Till we scope things out. But ultimately, the politics thing has gotten so charged lately, like especially this summer, because we can say that it has been for different communities from the start, right? There were communities like trans women of color have been getting killed since the 80s. The AIDS pandemic has killed so many people, our Native American community. So we can say that politics has been personal to everybody for a very long time. This summer, the heat was turned way, way up when it was not only COVID, but also it was the Black Lives Matter movement. And it seemed like we couldn't get a break where like every time there was a scientific fact or this happened, there had to be a political alternative fact. Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. Masks don't work, they're control. It's like, no, we have like, we can disagree on opinions, but we have to agree on facts. And this summer, it became almost impossible to not view everything as political when we couldn't even have just a simple thing of like, wear a mask.
This summer, I realized how people could join a cult this summer.
Yes.
Like you legit think people are like, we used to watch those shows about people in a cult and you're like, I would never. And these people are like, doesn't exist. There's no COVID. Like literally people are dying. Fake. It's alternative. Dude's dead. I'm going to drink bleach. Like, stop it. These people, like something happens to people. That's why that's a version of a cult where you normalize something that's not normal.
Exactly.
Sorry,
Right.
God forbid. It's kind of like, I'm so glad that my grandmother wasn't here to see this. I don't know what she would say. She used to be a school teacher. She'd be so disappointed in these very smart, educated people making really dumb choices. And that's not a political statement. That's a bleach will kill you statement.
Yeah.
That's all. Like facts, like you were saying.
We're forced to go into that camp because it stopped being about, this is a fact, this is not a fact. It started being about my tribe, it says this, so I have to go along with everything this tribe says.
Yes.
Which is one thing I want to bring back is like that Biden is, I think, the perfect leader for this moment to really bring together the healing. And by healing, it means that we can talk to all of our family members again. But it does also mean a lot that people on our side are going to have to grapple with a lot of forgiveness. We're going to have to let go of some of the things that we've thought it's like, we got to make them pay for what they did. No, but also, and to remind us that it does also unfortunately going to fall on us to have open arms and to welcome people back. As Mayor Pete said, give hate no home, but extend an open arm and invitation for people to come back from the cult.
Next year. So anyway.
Christmas. After the holidays. Absolutely. Not a problem. Thanksgiving, no. No.
Too soon.
No, I love that. I love that is the message. And I think the other piece, which is kind of, I think where you're going also, is that, is Biden perfect? No. Are there things that as a voter of, I voted for Biden, are there things that I disagree with? Yes. And so I think there's also that piece to your point of like, you have to just agree with everything about your candidate or else. And there's no gray left over for the conversation or for the yes and, kind of that improv, like, okay, yes, he's very, very old. And yes, there are some challenges here. And yes, we need to work on a lot of stuff and not continue back to everything's okay. And let's paint this with a brush of everything's fine. Don't look over here. Because I think as much as this has been such a challenging time for all of us, it has uncovered so many of the things that we knew were happening, and that so many folks in the communities of color, in these marginalized communities, were like, yeah, this is happening to us. And now it's, front and center, whether that's because of COVID, because of Trump and the very outlandish beliefs that he has and the things that he says. It has kind of come front of mind for so many people. And I think it's that acknowledgement and knowing that there's a lot of work to be done. And to your point, knowing the way that the numbers fell, that also just is like oh, wow, if people are going in thinking it was going to be a landslide for Biden, wow, okay, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. And I think that's the piece that's also interesting.
If I could piggyback on the numbers, because election night was rough, because we were like, oh God, no, not again. No. Like, Florida, what is happening to you? Not again. Texas, who got my hopes up on Texas, right? We were all going down that road again, especially like once you saw Florida go red, you're like, oh God, where's the whiskey?
Mm-hmm.
But as the votes have been counted, and I'm glad that it sucks that we had to take our time, because we're Americans and we want everything done yesterday. We want it now and efficient. The votes had to be counted and had to be done correctly, because we were going, like, our democracy was going to be attacked for its legitimacy, no matter what, from the current occupant of the White House.
Mm-hmm.
He was going to do it. The fact that it took so long, it mattered. Those numbers coming in, though, are showing a different picture than on election night.
Mm-hmm.
At the national level, it shows that actually this is not a landslide, but this is not exactly a close call. The Electoral College is not a close call, which we should get rid of. But
Yes.
Also that spread is big different. Is a big difference. One thing that I really want to highlight for Arizona, because since today it's official, Arizona is now in the Biden camp. Whoop-de-doo. The Republican unelected senator has finally conceded to the elected Democratic senator. One last day, I swear. But this is important because in Arizona.
So what he's saying is Mark Kelly won. Ha 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 ha.
That's not very
Oh,
nice.
sorry. Did I?
Yes.
Let me go back to my inside voice.
Won twice. But anyway, it is the fact that in Arizona, we now have 2 Democratic senators. We still have 5 out of 9 congressmen. Congress people are Democrats. We did not pick up a seat that we thought we were going to pick up.
Mm-hmm.
We did not turn neither the state house nor the state Senate blue, which we thought we were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think we netted 1 seat. In the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, we are a couple hundred votes away from deciding if we even picked up 1 seat. All of our Maricopa County seats, we lost all of them. Our county recorder in charge of the elections, who's been getting attacked for doing his job beautifully, just conceded his race to the Republican. God bless him, may he do an equally good job. But the only one to keep his job was, thank God, our sheriff, because that was actually, so the story says about Arizona that we had a lot of Republicans that went with us on Biden and on Mark Kelly for the Senate, and nothing else. It shows that a lot of independents wanted to balance out their their ballot, Democrat on the top and then Republican down below. But above all, one national lesson from Arizona is that they're going to see our victory and think, okay, cool, let's use this next year in Texas, use this next year in Florida. And please, anybody who's listening, do not do that, because what worked in Arizona is not going to work in Texas, not going to work in Florida, especially not in Florida. One big lesson should be that we can look at white men and distinguish them between college educated, non-college educated, urban, suburban. White women get also put into these categories. Black people get put into male, female categories for the most part, and Hispanics just one big blob of may this please come home once and for all. We are not monolithic. We had more turnout for Trump than in 2016 amongst Hispanics and African Americans, but we need to break that down into who actually drives that, what message works. Immigration is not a message that works for the Hispanic community, broadly speaking. It's mostly about healthcare. Arizona also had a very special case where voter turnout in Native American lands was one of the highest ever. And I believe the last figure is that 86% of it went for Biden. That is a ridiculously large number, and it's because a lot of grassroots activists got them out to vote because they knew that it matters, it is important. Native lands were threatened several times the last 3-4 years, especially around the border area for that stupid wall that did not get built, thank God. These things really do matter. And one specific thing in Arizona is that the generation that remembers our very racist, horrible Sheriff Joe Arpaio, the one that gave Arizona the worst reputation, the generation that saw their parents be detained in tent cities and really put into inhumane conditions, really terrible torture, their parents, families just separated, people being deported indiscriminately, like truly disgusting behavior. That generation, this was probably the first time that a lot of them were 18. Those kids who saw that happen, they remembered. And they didn't just show up to vote, they got all of their families to remember to get out and vote. The leadership of Hispanic people, specifically of women of color, like our great chef, Silvana, it cannot be underscored. Yes, it was great to have Cindy McCain also come out and give Republicans permission to vote for Joe Biden. It was great that we had the momentum that McCain was a big hero and he was seen as a antagonist to Trump. But ultimately, this is a victory to the Hispanic community, to the Native American community, but above all for women who turned out. Even, I will categorize them, the suburban white women, college-educated suburban white women who still came out and to vote.
Me and Katie say no.
Yeah.
No.
But
That's going to be a whole
White
separate
women,
class.
white women, we need to talk.
That's a whole other
Yeah.
podcast. Surviving the
that's-
55%.
And so I want to touch real quick, just so you were mentioning kind of the native tribes. And if you look at the map of Arizona, I think that was, for me, something that was just so cool to see. And to your point, the efforts that were put in by folks like Jamasita Peslaki and Orlando Teller and some of these other folks that are in the Four Corners area that just did an amazing job of talking to everyone. Hey, registering folks that had never voted before and having these conversations about why this was so important. Going back to one of the first things you said, every single vote is important. And I think we learned that very, very clearly in 2016. And we just need to keep remembering that every time that we need to vote on anything, that every single vote does count. And it's so important to show up, cast your vote, follow up on whether your vote was counted, all of those things. It's critical. So Jackye, I'm sorry. I know you were going to have a question.
No, I was just, I find it, Sal brought up a really important thing about how they look at these people and they just put them and lump them together. people just started talking about the white suburban vote. They don't even talk about the white women vote. They don't talk about where the white men voted. It's just an assumption. And they want to start blaming it on all of the other genders and ethnicities as if that's the problem within the United States. But it doesn't take a lot. Like, I have been blessed enough to have lived in South Florida, but also live in Oregon, like go from the difference in seeing those communities. I've lived in New York and I've lived in Texas. And so it's funny that people, to me, lump these people together. People don't realize when you're sitting in Ohio watching the news and you think Hispanic, it's like you don't even know what it's like, being, a particular, you speak Spanish, you might not identify with being Hispanic. You might not identify or understand anything. I understood Mexican Spanish. I had an assistant from Paraguay. And I had another assistant from Colombia, and nobody could understand each other, and nobody knew the culture, and everybody had to explain the food, and everybody had a different note of opinion. And they would put us three in women of color, right? And it was so completely different. I mean, we have to look at the disaggregate data of really specifying what that meant, because you have to understand when people came over here from, especially in South Florida, there's a lot of different groups, but I'm speaking specifically to the Cuban groups. They were happy to become America, to get away from Cuba. A lot of people were like, I'm Cuban American, but now it's part of the American dream, which Trump was trying to say. And then there's other people that are still trying to hold on to their culture, but don't have a Florida that they can hold on to their whole culture. And so you have these little pockets in different places throughout the United States. And so it's just interesting to see. It's funny when you have somebody say like, oh, the Hispanic vote. And you're like, okay, we family's from the Virgin Islands. And Katie was like, we were just talking about it. No, it was somebody at work. Where's the Virgin Islands? I go, it's across the street from Puerto
I was
Rico.
like, I did not ask you that.
It wasn't you. It was not you. But she goes, where's the Virgin Islands?
Can you show me a map, Jackye?
I can. I go, it's across the street from Puerto Rico. And she goes, no, really? I go, no, really? And she goes, no, really? I was like, no, really.
Oh my goodness.
Like, that's Puerto Rico. She's like, but they don't speak Spanish. And I'm like, turns out some people do, actually. Just not the ones you know. Do you know? No? It's so crazy that we do that. And we have to. That's a part of being inclusive AF, so that you can say, yes, you might put me under this heading. I'm also a mom. I'm also a fan of TLC. I also am a meat eater. I'm also all these things. Before you try to decide what my politics, you look at my gender and my ethnicity and my state or my zip code, and you think you have it all figured out. And if we could embrace people as people, I feel like people would vote more if they felt like they were respected. That's why their vote doesn't count, because all I am is a Hispanic vote. All I am is a suburban woman vote. They already told me on the news what I think, so why am I voting? And if we could just respect people as people and stop putting them in places. But I will say the other thing that was cool, kind of, is that they allowed people to not, in Texas at least, I don't know if this is everywhere, that you couldn't vote straight ticket, which was great because people had to look at the different issues, but it also allowed people who might have gone straight ticket the other way, in a Republican way. But I think that's why we keep seeing the difference in the House and the Senate, where it's like, wait a minute, the president, I was just like, I keep holding out on all these places, like maybe the vote so we can, swing it in our favor. Like they voted for Biden, but they didn't on the rest of the ticket. So it just shows we do have area people are going to start. I think it's a good opportunity that people know you don't have to do that, so that we can get some good politics and not have to vote straight party, but what we really need to do, whatever candidate is going to be able to support those things. I think it should be interesting. It just, in my life, it happens to be Democratic, but
Yeah.
Well, and I think
choices.
that the numbers, even, I think so many people have mentioned this, the way that they were bucketing folks on election night of who voted for who, and erased so many cultures, so many groups. I don't think, I think it was CNN that didn't even acknowledge Asian Americans in any way, shape, or form. And so it was like,
do we
that's
have
another
Asian
whole.
Americans in the what?
Well, so this is one thing that actually I want to say, like, put it on both sides, like, of the 2020 campaign thing. You would see in some MAGA rallies, some poor lost folks who were like, Latinos for Trump, right? On the Biden side, it actually made me kind of proud to see all the difference. First of all, like, just how creative people got, especially like true creatives who were at home way too much during the pandemic. Guatemaltecos for Biden, Salvadorans for Biden, Mexicanos, Arizonans, like all the different logos, like AAPI, Indians, like it became like, and we'll always get accused of playing identity politics with that, but it wasn't more of a nod of like, hey, we don't want to be thinking about you just as Latinos for like, no, we're all different. We all care about different things. Exactly what you said about the Cuban experience of the refugees, I guess, from Cuba in Florida is very different from that of the Haitians, is very, very different from that, like, but similar to that of the Venezuelans, totally different from the Colombians. And also in the Hispanic community, like we use it broadly, we also have to be honest about the fact that we do come with some heavy, heavy racist baggage of racial socioeconomic hierarchies in Latin American countries that we often don't talk about because we get grouped into like as Hispanics and we're minorities. But it cannot exactly, like, we need to stop it, but it does need to be acknowledged how Latin American groups look down on each other in this country.
It's a caste system. It's
yes.
like, it's a caste system. And
yes.
yeah, I mean, it's just similar to that because it's like, hey, aren't we all? Nope. It's like, because you're over here and people's last names, and I know what that means, and you must be, and you know, it's.
And skin color still matters a
Yes.
lot in Latin America.
Yes.
And as inclusive as we all try to be on the Democratic side here, like, it is a reality. It's still happening. We have to put that aside, have it like just not like just squash it.
Mhm.
But it does feel like we are moving towards progress.
Mhm.
And I mean, how do you guys feel after the summer? I mean, is this where you thought you'd be after the summer of COVID and racial justice protests?
I think we were going to be in Vegas.
Yeah.
We weren't going to be here at all.
Anywhere but here. No. So I would say, for the work that I do, so, doing diversity, equity, inclusion work with organizations, COVID shut the faucet off completely because every company was looking at reducing headcount and saving money and all of these things. And so budgets for diversity initiatives were non-existent. And then with the social justice issues that came up, the murder of George Floyd, the murder of Breonna Taylor, all these other things that continue to happen, it was like, no, it's go time. And we all need to get on board of this conversation and have these conversations. But so that is great. And so companies are paying attention, but it's also the first couple of weeks after George Floyd where everyone was invested in learning and unlearning and going and reading the books and going and understanding more. That has absolutely slowed down. And that's the part that I think needs to continue is our own education and our own learning, because I think there's just a piece missing there of it's still that if it didn't happen to me, it doesn't exist. Or if my experiences was different than yours, it doesn't exist, which, we got, slapped in the face during COVID because everyone was sitting in front of their TV and their, social media pages and all these different things, where now we're a little bit back to that, whatever that norm was of, I can kind of ignore it because it's those people over there, not me. And so I think I am happy from the perspective of, I think companies are waking up and I think humans are waking up to the issues that have been going on for years and years. But I am hopeful that learning continues.
I love that. And I totally share the concern that like, oh my God, I hope it wasn't just a like immediate reaction and now just like a fad.
Mhm.
Like, how can we keep it alive without having to depend on more crises and more senseless deaths?
Yeah, I
But
think,
from police brutality.
yeah, no. Yeah, I think that is the challenge, because I think there is, and it's also, hey, well, Joe Biden's now been elected, so everything's fine again because we have a Democrat in the White House, so it's fine, or we will shortly. Get out. Uh, oh, wait, again. Wow. See, this is why we shouldn't record on Fridays.
Oh.
I get a little sassy on Fridays. That being said, like I think that's the biggest piece, that we have to just keep acknowledging what is actually going on, and the fact that we still need to do so much work in these areas. And, to Jackie's point, when we have a split in the House and the Senate versus the president, like, how are we actually going to get some of these reforms done? How are we actually going to get some of the stuff done that needs to get done? And I think that's a piece that we need to keep on our representatives to say, this is important to us, and we want these conversations to continue. And it's not done because Biden's going to be, moving into the White House in a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to have to take, I look at it through my lens, and I just feel like on some of it, it is kind of like what we saw. It wasn't just people were getting educated, but it was like people thinking that is not okay. And it was like, see, this happens, and it's like, that's not okay. But I think it's going to be, I still don't think it's safe for Black women to come their full selves to go to work. It's still not. And I think it's going to take more people stepping up and pulling us out and saying, like, no, this is me, and this is just the way I'm coming, for these things to happen, and not let people off the hook. I mean, hopefully these people don't listen, but there's this lady who keeps asking me to schedule a meeting with her. It's not you, Katie. I know you're going to think it's you. It's not you. And I'm like,
no, I know you accept every meeting I ask for.
And I'm like, I'm not, no, she won't send me an invite. She just keeps asking me to schedule a meeting. And I'm like, no, I won't. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And she just keeps asking. I'm like, well, you can send an invite. Look, it's going to be like, it's like a freaking standoff. We're in a standoff. And it's like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I had to tell somebody last week that wanted me to do something, like do something for free or try to do this kind of thing. And it's like, I'm not doing that. And you have to, I think when I was going into the job that I have, I went out on a limb and took a personal risk, and I was terrified of doing it. And I'm grown and confident, and I've got friends, and I'm popular, and I'm pretty, and I'm but all those things, I was terrified. And Katie was like, you have to, and I was like, I can't do it. She was like, you're gonna have to, like, you'll be fine, you're gonna have to. But it takes people doing that, of stepping up.
See, Sal, it's not just you that.
Oh, whoa.
I yell at Sal too. Yeah, it's kind of a jam that I have with my friends, that I tell them what to do. It's weird.
I love it. I love it. I respond to it. When a woman tells me what to do, I'm like,
she's like, do it. Yeah.
Jackye, if I'm allowed, can I ask you a question that to kind of tie a couple of things that you said that it's still not safe for Black women to bring their whole selves to work. Yeah. I said earlier that I was told, like, you bring your whole self to work from an LGBT perspective. And one thing that I wanted us to touch upon is representation and visibility, is that we now have Kamala Harris in the White House as well. And that means a lot to girls, to women, but to little girls everywhere, to kids with a gender non-binary expression, of South Asian descent, of African American descent, of African descent. All of this really does matter from a young age. But when you said it's still not safe, I felt it was safe to bring my whole self to work because I saw leaders in my organization that were gay as hell, and who were a little bit like, they were flamboyant, they were fine, they were accepted, they were a little feminine, they were themselves, and they were accepted, they were respected, They were given their seat at the table, and if anybody disagreed with them or challenged them, it was on the merits of what they said, not on the fact that they were wearing pink socks with a light blue tie. Like, you know, would that, like, is that something that is going to make a difference for that next part of the population?
I think this is what's different with what Kamala is doing, and this is the difference, and you'll see it. It's the reason why she, and it's not like we're best friends, so this could all be wrong, but why she came out to Mary J. Blige. She didn't come out to Beyonce. She didn't come out to like some other group that means like people naturally would have known. It's a very specific song, very, very specific reason, because she wasn't selling herself out. All the people that she went to school with, all the people that supported her, all the people in her sorority and people that went to Howard, all will hold her accountable. All of those brown folks in LA will hold her accountable of a don't forget where you came from mentality. It's why she can wear Timbs and not feel anything about it. When she's walking from her plane, she didn't have her little Prada dress and suit on. And so she's going to have to do it, but it's just not fun. The person that I've seen that's brought her full, complete self to work, who used to be the diversity and inclusion person for Target, who I loved, and then she left and she went to Essence, which is great. But at the same time, you're like, well, that doesn't count. So you have to go back out there with the white people and show them what Black people are like so that they'll like us. And now you're with all the Black people and now they accept you, of course. It's a different thing. Even when you see women in those spaces, they're not being 100% themselves. There's just a lot of code switching, and that's the only way you can survive right now. I think that'll change the more she's herself in her job as vice president. But we all are going to have to deal with the repercussions of all Black women, adults, are going to have to deal with it. Whatever happens, you know, it'll fall back on all of us Black women.
Okay.
I have two comments. Hold on, Sal. I have two comments. Number one, Caroline Wanga is who you're referring to who is now the CEO of Essence, FYI, which is so exciting. And she's going to clean up some things that were going on there. There's some work to be done there. And she is amazing, and I adore her. That is my first point. My second point is, Sal, I would push back on you just slightly that yes, a gay man is a lot less scary in some ways, and you are white presenting. You know, you are in darker light right now, but you are light skinned.
Yes.
And you've been outside on the road doing the things. But I say that just because I think having those identities and that code switching that has to occur, I think there is you do what you need to do to get by. But I do think there is I hope that this is something that young women can look up to and go, yes, I can do that now. I hope that there is a shift. And I think people like Minda Hart's writing the memo and other folks that are doing this work are talking about this and are being very upfront with, this is not okay. We want to be ourselves at work and we should be able to. And those stereotypes that have been typical, you know, and that's what women of color have lived under for years.
It's the angry Black women. So we're going in as an angry Black woman. So when you talk about it, then it's confirmation bias that you're still an angry Black woman. So that's why it's so hard to be able to push those things. That's what people think with before they know you. So if you say, I'm not having a good day, and they'll be like, oh yeah, well, she's angry because, you know, she's Black. That's what
but you saw it. Yeah. And you saw it in the debates where Kamala, even while she was saying, I'm speaking, it was with a smile on her face and everything's fine, but here's the deal. And so had she had a face like we have seen from Hillary Clinton, which very much got a lot of pushback and feedback, that would not have gone over well. And the fact that and as simple as that might be to say, okay, she had a smile on her face, so it's okay. That's the type of stuff that is looked at by folks that don't know or are coming into a situation, which is just so wackadoo on so many levels. But
I think it'll change.
Reality.
I think she brings enough where you, as a Black woman, can still identify with her as a Black woman. Like it's enough.
Mhm.
And I don't think that I've never seen who I would think, even though I know probably deep down there's a little bit of code switching, but she's always been authentic and she will bring herself. And I'm not kidding about her, just the fact that she wore Chuck Taylors,
I do wonder
It's a
if
big
the
thing.
sale of Chuck Taylors went up when she showed up with those on, because I would guess that they did.
I thought it was
Who
when I
doesn't
started
wear a
wearing
good
them.
pair of
Campaign
Chuck
actually had a
Taylors?
T-shirt of like a creative one where it was a bunch of aviators and those shoes as code for Joe and Kamala and Kamala.
Yeah.
That that was her signature, and that's so cool.
I just remembered something. Both of you have a shirt that's the same. And I know this to be true. The
Me and Sal
Kamala
have
shirt.
the same shirt.
Yes, you and Sal
Which
have the same shirt. The Kamala shirt, the one that's like in
First,
like
not
cursive,
left.
like it's black with white lettering.
I don't
yeah.
have that shirt. I have the Joe shirt.
No, I thought I saw you with the Kamala shirt on the other day on social media.
No, but when it gets here, I'll put it on though.
Okay. And when it does, I would like pictures of the two of you and we'll put them on social media together and it will be perfect. Sal, I totally cut you off earlier. I am so sorry. What is there? What else would you like to share?
So on that note, there was one day when the day that Jessica Alba was in Arizona, we had an event for her at Burton Bar Library, and it was great. That day, I had on a T-shirt that was special design of Kamala at like 4 or 5 years old, and it said in this cool font, "The first, but not the last." And then a couple other people also showed up with that T-shirt. It was like a popular one during the campaign, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then turns out that Jessica Alba was there with her best friend. Her best friend is an incredible creative. Name is escaping me right now. She designed that shirt for her and for the campaign.
Oh, wow.
So she immediately was like, "My friend designed that shirt." We're like, "What?" "Yeah, that's me." And she was wearing it. A couple of people were wearing it. It's like, okay, socially distance, super selfie and mask and everything, but it was a really cute moment of like when you just there was just so much love in this campaign.
Well, and it's real. It was real too. It was a real moment of, oh, hey, look, I did that. That's so awesome. I love that.
There's a very interesting fun fact. I don't know why I didn't bring it up earlier. The people who are deaf or hard of hearing, when you are president, they come up with a sign for you. And for people who liked Trump, it was one. And for people who didn't, then this was the sign for President Trump, like his hair toupee going on. So they decided, and I don't know who they are, that this would be the sign for Biden because of his aviator glasses. But people in the Black community, because this is also very close to the sign of the Crips, it's not fully this, but it's close. And then so there's like this whole debate on if they should use that sign for President Biden. Fascinating. I'll let you know how it goes. But that's the thing that was going on, because they were like, we should pick another sign to represent Joe. So if you had a sign, I know you don't know sign language, but if you had to pick a sign for Joe Biden, for the other people listening, you're going to have to go on YouTube to see what this is. What would it be if there was something else besides putting on? What would you
I'm sorry. I am kind of okay with him being part of the Crips, right? Like, no, I'm just kidding.
Kind of though.
Tough.
Couldn't it be like that? Couldn't it be like a tie?
Sorry, I was totally kidding. That's
the American school that I went to in Mexico. Actually, we opened up to hard of hearing students. So we had translators in class, and we actually started to they taught us Mexican Sign Language. It's not the same as American Sign Language. It's really dumb considering we're like San Diego, Tijuana, right on the border.
Right?
Anyway, so you ask somebody who is hard of hearing for your signature. They gave me, because the letter S for my first name, Sal, because I used to slick my hair back.
Yeah.
Before the Trumps did it, okay? Before. But.
And your hair is real.
I mean, for Joe, okay, if it's not this,
yeah,
I would probably do something with the J, but like to create a smile. So a J is this,
Yeah,
just create a smile.
I like it.
I like that.
Drawing it, because he also has like one of the best smiles that orthodontists have ever made.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he
I
does.
would want to combine it with his laugh. I love his laugh. If you put like the J, combine it with his laugh somehow. I also like it. I like it, but I think everybody his tie, because he always has a really nice tie. But
All right.
I'm so glad to have met you.
Salvador, our final question for you. And Jack and I do this at the end of all of our episodes, so we're gonna make our guests do it as well. So you're our first guinea pig.
Victim.
What is one thing that you would want folks who are listening to take away from this episode?
You have more power than you think you do. It's straight up like, we are so critical of ourselves, and we always think that people are judging us, and they're not. But like, you would be surprised how many people really respect your opinion, and they value your opinion. Not only what you say, but how you show and how you feel, and that your energy, your conviction, and your enthusiasm is infectious. Spread that. Don't spread anything else. Please wear a mask.
And please wear a mask.
Spread all of the joy, none of the virus.
None.
Thank you.
I love that.
No, that's great. And we actually have an episode that will be airing soon about influencers, and how even if you don't think you are an influencer, you are, like, because people are always listening. And so, I mean, that ties in very nicely. Can you angle your computer down? I know for folks listening, you're not going to see these beautiful girls, but these two beautiful Great Danes have on their collars Dogs for Biden collars on. So, you know, they are also on board with the Biden train. So it's a good thing. Sal. Yes, exactly. Sal, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Thank you for being our first guest. You were amazing. And Jackye, want to sign us off?
I'm Black Jackye.
No.
Yes, that was so good.
So okay, in a previous episode, we were talking about being just white and just black, and I'm like, no. So she thinks it's funny because I was like, I'm just white. So that's not how I'm signing off. I'm not.
Okay.
No, not doing it.
Thanks for joining us on the Inclusive AF podcast. This is Jackye.
And this is Katee. Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye, guys.